Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to the June 2021 meeting of the West Colfax Community Association. We probably have a few people that will come in while we're getting wound up here. Welcome. Thank you for getting up early once again to join us. We've got a great program. It's action-packed, so we're going to try to move it through and stay on timeline. I want to mention a couple things just so I don't forget, and there may be reminders as we go through the program. Number one, mark your calendar for November 11. That's the date that we have for the Lakewood Lately Luncheon that was delayed from last year during the pandemic. It'll be at Lakewood Country Club. There'll be more information coming on that, but it's always a festive celebration of everything West Colfax. Also, I want to shout out to Katie because she's added a join here button on our website. So we're about ready to launch into kind of a membership drive, and we ask each of you to invite people to this meeting, make them aware of what we do, send them to our website, and if they would like to join, there's an easy button to click on the website, and they can become a WCCA member and get one of the famous collector pins that we now have. So. With that, we'll get started, and first we go through state and county elected officials. I know we have some county commissioners here, but before, are there any state elected officials that would like to say a word? Okay, and I'm not sure which of the Jeffco commissioners would like to go first, but I'll just turn it over and
Chris Kennedy.
Yeah, Chris Kennedy, sir.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, Chris is actually on the program.
Okay.
So yeah, so I saw that and went right by him because he's actually our first up on our program. So he's going to give us an update on the legislative session. So
we could do a quick county update if you like, Ron.
Yeah, please.
You want to just jump right to that? Okay.
Yes.
I know Commissioners Kerr and Kraft Tharp are here as well. And I can share with you a couple of quick headlines because I know you want to move through it quickly on vaccines and the American Rescue Plan. One thing I wanted to share with everyone is that, as you may know, but if you don't, we really think it's important to share that Jefferson County is one of a handful of counties statewide that is leading in terms of vaccination rates. 63% of Jefferson County is fully vaccinated, and 72% of Jeffco residents have at least one of two shots in arms. So we're really happy about that. And that is truly a testament to the work of all of our healthcare providers across the county, as well as Jeffco Public Health. Speaking of Jeffco Public Health, you're going to see them everywhere this summer. They have 25 mobile units, what we would call vans, that'll be at farmers markets. They'll be at shopping centers, school programs that happen during the summer, grab and go sites for meals for kids at different schools across Jeffco. We still have a lot more work to do, though, to close the gap in terms of communities of color. We know COVID-19 has hit them disproportionately, including our Latino population. So there are a number of strategies, including connecting with trusted messengers like Conectando, as well as mapping tracks of high Latino population areas in Jefferson County with a hyper-local focus in those areas, and going to schools with high Latino populations like Alameda High School and others. There's a lot more work we're doing in that area as well. The other thing I wanted to flag quickly is that we are also surveying business leaders and owners, as well as community members, to gather your input on how to best leverage American Rescue Plan dollars. Jeffco is going to receive $114 million. It's a once in a generation opportunity to leverage those dollars well. Of course, we have certain areas in which we can leverage them, but we want to hear from you. And if you visit jeffco.us in the next week, you'll see that survey on our homepage. I know we've got some other interesting things to talk about, like homeless navigation and more. And with that, I'll just turn it over to Commissioner Kerr and Commissioner Kraft Tharp.
thank you, Leslie.
So I'll jump in. I don't see Andy jumping in. So I'm Tracy Kraft Tharp, County Commissioner out of District 1, which is the north area. So I must have been bored yesterday because you have last month's meeting recorded on your webpage. So I looked at it. Okay. And what makes it very interesting is that just a month ago, congratulated you all that the COVID numbers had changed just the week before. So isn't it amazing how much a month can bring? It's pretty shocking, isn't it? So the other great news that I want to bring you from the county is that starting on July 1st, we will start to accept applications for boards and commissions. So jump on our webpage, take a look at the boards and commissions that have vacancy positions, and hope that we can see your application, especially representing this part of the county would be pretty important. I think we've got a lot of fun boards and commissions for you to be able to participate in. The other activity that we're doing this summer is budget. So we want to get your input around the county budget, and we'll be working on that process, gathering information from the departments, making some decisions around both the federal dollars, but also the county dollars. So exciting times at the county. Thanks, guys. It's always good to see you all.
Thank you, Tracy.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Andy Kerr, a Jefferson County Commissioner for District 2, which includes the area around West Colfax. And it would not be a meeting with Andy Kerr if I didn't talk about bikes a little bit. So I did want to mention that Jefferson County is updating its bike plan, which has not been done in about 8 or 9 years. And so really excited that we're going to be going through that. It's a very inspirational document, and we're hoping to make sure that we have really good multimodal connections. Yes, it is a bike plan, but we do want to connect with the entire transportation system. I know that we have some exciting stuff happening. I'm sure Representative Kennedy can look right over his back fence and see the final connection there on the W line bike path. I was trying to ride my bike to work the other day and use that path, and all of a sudden I saw that they were finishing the connection there. So I took a little safe detour, but it's great to see that that's finally happening. And just so you, as the rescue funds and infrastructure, knock on wood on the infrastructure funds coming, that we'll be able to make a lot more of the connections we're looking for. But across the board, some people aren't able to walk or bike to work or to play. And so we want to make sure that we have a full multimodal transportation system. And I know a lot of the infrastructure money we're looking at is meant to connect the whole system together. So great to be here, and look forward to everyone else's updates.
Thank you. Thank you, Andy. It's great to have all three of you here. So we really appreciate you being part of our WCCA community. With that, we'll turn to Lakewood City Council, and I know we have at least a couple council members here, and I'll just let them speak up as they wish.
Good morning, this is Charlie Abel, and I'm going to let Sarah provide our update.
Okay, thank you, Charlie.
And this is Sharon, and I'm going to let Mayor Paul provide the update.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you.
You always have a little bit of time if you need it or have something to say, but I think that I don't think we have any other council members here. So with that, Mayor Paul, the floor is yours. Adam is, I think I see you on the roster.
Adam, you're muted. I can see your lips moving, but.
Thank you there, Representative Kennedy. Well, you guys get a whole do-over on what I was going to say, and you'd think by now we'd get this. So it's clearly way past time to get us back to normal and get us back in person. So anyways, I have a quick update. I'll go through a lot of things. I know that we are super busy and full today. Council on Monday night granted 2 blight exemptions or designations, however you want to call them, for 2 properties in this area. And I want to thank Two Creeks, WCCA, West Colfax for your support on those. One is on Lamar, and that's a Reed Davis project, which really I think could be transformative into some of the other things that he's done over there. And the other one was further down the line off of Depew. And so these are areas where you are seeing a lot of change and development and a lot of blight and a lot of issues related to redevelopment. So we had a robust discussion, but those two passed. No new updates yet on Westland. Have had a couple interesting conversations about folks interested in the Seritage, which is the Sears location. I can't say exactly who, but there are folks looking, and they could be real positives for the community. Bill and Kevin and I sat down with RTD and some folks out at the Oak Street RTD property and had a conversation out there. We certainly know how important that is to the community around there. Again, nothing new to come out of it, but just good conversations about people that have interest and want to see things move forward on the corridor. Fueling stations, we passed a ordinance related to fueling stations in response to what we've seen on the Colfax corridor of a proliferation of them coming in. I can't talk this morning, but there'll be some new rules around that. So the goal is we have, a lot of dreams and visions for West Colfax, and it's not to have a gas station at every corner. And we certainly wanted to find a balance with businesses and support small businesses, but I think the council felt that balance was getting a little bit out of whack. On the 28th, we will have a second reading on the proposed ballot initiatives related to marijuana sales tax, cultivation sales tax, medical marijuana sales tax, as well as tobacco taxes. And these are quite, I think, of great interest for a lot of folks. The tobacco tax has quite a range from 10 to 50%. So please weigh in. We'd love to hear from you going forward to see what range makes sense, or does a range at all make sense. You can engage on lakewoodspeaks.org is probably the best way to engage right now. And then of course, second reading will have public comment. At that 28th meeting, we'll also have a better idea of when council will look at coming back together. And hopefully we'll see that coming soon. Commissioner Dahlkemper mentioned homelessness. We had all the cities in the county met last week and really started to talk about plans that would bring everybody together, starting with looking at 2 navigation centers, one in the north area, one in the central. All the councils are going to be starting to talk about this. This will be funding involved. There'll be a lot of different moving parts, but I think the consensus at that meeting from the council members and mayors and commissioners that were in attendance was that they'd like to see this continue. So that's a big deal to move forward and really continue to look at these issues that we are facing. Had a great opportunity to meet with on the phone Jim McKinney, the new principal at Mulholm, and it sounds like he is on here, so welcome. He would love to engage with this community. He's got a lot of great ideas for Mulholm and really wants to be a part of what's going on and have you all be a part. It's a high needs school with a bunch of wonderful children who deserve the best, and hopefully we can surround them and really help lift them up. Want to thank our state legislators. Representative Kenny's here today, but they work so well with us. You'll hear an update. There's always bills where the city's going to see differently, but these folks take the time to really engage with the city, to understand, especially in regards to law enforcement. They were active with our police chief, with Sheriff Schrader, and really trying to understand some of the issues related to policing and police reform. So I want to thank them for that. You'll hear about redistricting coming up. There'll be a meeting in Lakewood. That's going to be a big deal. There are some ideas that would split Lakewood in half for a congressional district. So keep that in mind as you will have the opportunity to weigh in. I want to thank Congressman Perlmutter. Ashley's on. They were able to put in a 1.75 request for Lakewood on West Colfax, which would basically go Wadsworth to the west for safety, street improvements, things like that. So we don't know where that'll be, but I thank you for that. And last but not least, who inspires you? Tell us who inspires you at the Mayor's Inspiration Awards. Get that in by July 15th. This last year, I know there's tons of inspirational people and stories. And in some ways, unfortunately, some people who have passed away, but we have an opportunity to honor them as well. So get that in, and I'm happy to take any questions now or certainly in the chat box. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Paul. Thank you. You packed a lot into that short period of time, so we appreciate you being here and what you're doing. So as Mayor Paul said, you can through Lakewood Engage, you can engage there, and if you have questions, you can use our chat box. I'm going to turn next to Vanessa Zarate for Lakewood Economic Development. She's actually on our program as well on part 2 of what she covered the first part last month. But Vanessa, do you have anything at this point to chime in with?
Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Ron. I will defer most of my time to my presentation a little later. I just wanted to shout out 2 things. To keep updated with us in between these meetings, please follow us on all social media at Lakewood Econ Dev on all platforms, and follow our newsletter. And just wanted to give a quick shout out to something that I think you'll start hearing more about from us from the police department, and you'll start seeing some invitations. Don't want to take the thunder if the police department is going to talk about it, but they are starting a new program called LEAD, or Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion, and they want you to be involved. So stay tuned, attend the community meetings that they'll be having and the info sessions, and let me know if there are any questions.
Okay, thank you, thank you. And as I said, we're going to hear more from Vanessa when we get to the program. Next, we have 40 West Art Districts, and I know Liz is here with some information that's going to be exciting to listen to. Liz?
Morning, everybody. So good to see y'all. Yeah, so there's always, of course, a lot going on in the district. Things have really started to pick back up so much. We had over 200 people in 40 West Gallery alone for our previous First Friday in the district. Safe, fun, family friendly. So it's been really wonderful to see people returning to the arts in person, because as we know, the arts are something that uplift us, inspire us, really cause us to think about our communities. And it's something that really needs to be enjoyed in person in so many ways. So it's really great to see all that. So in that vein, a lot going on. If you haven't been out to the 40 West Art Line yet this summer, I highly encourage you to walk, bike, scoot, ride that 4-mile route. We have a new free little library that's going up in the coming weeks in front of Creekside Senior Living Residences. And then we're actually meeting today to select a ground mural concept and artist to complete a huge ground mural also at the intersection of 17th and Pierce. That'll be done in mid-July. That'll be a community-driven project with volunteers from Excel Foundation. And I want to give a huge shout out to Excel Foundation. We've been the recipient of a grant award from them for the last 6 years running, and they contribute over $2 million to the Colorado community alone every year in the form of grant awards. So really, really wonderful to partner with them. First Friday, July 2nd, we are inviting the Glass Artists of Colorado back into our gallery. If you haven't seen that exhibit, it's truly stunning to see what they can do with glass art. It's a beautiful exhibit. They came out last year, but of course the traffic was so quiet because it was right in the middle of COVID that we're really excited to have them back again. So that'll be a great opportunity. And then I also want to remind folks that we are relaunching the return of our huge street party, the Colfax Art Crawl. It'll be first Friday in August. So that's August 6th from 6 to 9 p.m. So please mark your calendar, start to tell everyone you know. We'll have the Handsome Little Devils on site. They'll be doing a Joy Bomb art parade throughout the district and also a ton of other fun activities. And then in conjunction with that event, it'll be a great opportunity to meet our not one, but 2 new artists in residences. So we have selected 2 new artists in residences. We have Jessica Jecky, who will be taking over a studio space in 40 West Studios. And then we are thrilled to begin a new partnership with United Methodist Church. They have donated an amazing space to a second artist in residence. His name is Blake Ballard. He is both a graduate of REMCAD and also an employee at REMCAD. So it's a really wonderful partnership. And then they are going to be slowly turning over some of their underutilized spaces to lower than market value studio spaces for artists. So it'll be another artist enclave right in the heart of the district. We also selected our poet laureate a few weeks ago. Her name is Maggie, and she'll be joining us in the coming weeks as well. She'll also be on site for our August event and doing things throughout the coming year in celebration of 40 West Art's 10-year anniversary, and also just in celebration of everything that's happening along the West Colfax corridor. And then finally, I just wanted to give you an update. We've been working in the background with two of our sister Colorado Creative Certified Industry Arts Districts, Steamboat Springs, and a brand new arts district to CCI, which is Grand Lake. Both of those arts districts are located along historic Route 40. And so we've been partnering with them on a really fun marketing campaign. It will be called the Route 40 Art to Art Tour. And you'll be able to find marketing materials, mini tours, and guides for how you can explore historic Route 40 and stop at all three of those wonderful arts districts and do all kinds of things. So look for more on that to come. And it's been a really great partnership with those other two arts districts. So if you have any questions, there's a ton more, but that's a good overview. And if you have any questions for me, just let me know.
Thank you, Liz. I love the Route 40 connection with these two new art districts. That's pretty cool. Thank you for all that. Sounds like we're winding back up in the art district as well. In August 6th, 10-year anniversary. Yay. Kevin, for the Lakewood West Colfax bid.
Yeah, thanks very much, Ron. Just to reiterate a couple of points that the mayor brought up, the Lakewood West Colfax bid appreciates council's actions on Monday. We are definitely advocates and sending in our letter of support for taking some properties that meet the conditions of blight and putting them into active service that moves the momentum of the corridor forward. So thanks very much to our elected officials on that front. As the mayor also mentioned, the bid is also involved in conversations around the properties on Oak Street Station. So we definitely heard the community and the neighborhood groups from our Lakewood Vision 2040 update plan. So know that we're involved in all those early conversations and coordinating meetings as well with the neighborhood associations there. Stay tuned. There's going to be some new art coming into the district. Westline Flats, you've probably seen the shell of the apartment building coming online there. That developer has continued their investment in the corridor and to the art and culture in the corridor as well. So stay tuned. There's going to be a new large-scale art installation that they're looking at that parking garage on. So we'll be excited to show you the concepts as those gel. Pivoting to other future things, the Drumstick Building, as you know, we announced last month that we're on the arc to make that the new home and core for all three organizations. We're working closely with Callahan Construction on early phases about getting the roof under repair and then moving the rest of the division forward. So we're involved regularly on a weekly basis, moving that project forward. And with that, I'll kind of close because we'll probably hear from Representative Kennedy about some bills that might affect the future of and be able to be applied to the Drumstick Building. Being a certified creative district, we're anxious to learn more about some of the bills that just passed, and we think the Drumstick Building might be a good candidate for some of those. So I'll close with that. Thanks very much, Ron.
Thanks, Kevin. And I like how we are referring to it as the Drumstick Building for those that have been around long enough to make that connection. Next, we have West Metro Fire.
Good morning. Thanks, Ron. I'm Cassie Tanner with West Metro Fire. Just a couple of updates this morning. We had a very long board meeting last night. It was our first one back in person, and we had about 100 people in attendance, which is quite unusual for us. As you know, our meetings are a little sleepier than Lakewood City Council meetings or the legislature, which we generally enjoy. But last night we had 3 citizen award presentations, as well as Captain Brendan Finnegan received and I don't want to get this wrong because it's a big deal, the 2021 NWCG Paul Gleason Lead by Example Award. He was one of 4 wildland firefighters in the country to receive this award. It's very prestigious and given by the National Fire Service. And we're very, very proud of him. So if you see Captain Finnegan, please give him a congratulations. The other thing that the chief wanted to make sure that you all knew about was we just completed our community wildfire protection plan. And we will be rolling that out in community meetings and doing some stakeholder work on that plan. It was very interesting to hear from the chiefs that have been working on this plan and all of the work that's gone into it about how we really are tackling our wildfire issues right here in the district. And so stay tuned for more information on that as we get into the fall. And then your safety tip is we're getting close to 4th of July. Leave the fireworks to the professionals. Please don't do fireworks on your street. It's bad for pets, it's a fire danger, and it's illegal. So go to Big Boom Bash, have fun, but don't do your own fireworks. Thanks.
Thank you, Cassie. Thank you for being here today. We appreciate it. And next we have Lakewood Police, and I think Commander Perry is in the house.
That's correct. Good morning. Just update on what's going on in the police department. We will be, speaking of fireworks, we'll be conducting our directed strict enforcement on June 25th, 26th, and 27th, and also July 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And that operation will go from 9 p.m. till 2 in the morning. We're going to put out 4 overtime agents on each of those nights, along with several volunteers to assist in locating fireworks issues. Additionally, we're going to launch a social media campaign to educate the community and make them aware of the illegality of the fireworks. And then finally, we have some variable message boards around the city that will remind everyone that fireworks are illegal and that there'll be strict enforcement practice. On our recruitment effort, we have a academy class coming up here in July. We've only received 74 applicants. That's the lowest number of applicants we've ever had in our memory. Just to give you a little context, in the past, we've had over 600 applicants for our academy class. We're down to about 74 right now. National Night Out is going to be August 3rd, and we have a registration page for that event on our Lakewood web page. If you need to find it, you could search National Night Out Lakewood. And then finally, I'd like to introduce you to Matt Wallington. He's the police department's homeless navigator, and he will be giving you a very brief overview of the progress that he's been making with the homeless and the program that we have here in the police department. So I'm going to turn over to Matt.
Hello, everybody. It's very nice to be here. My name is Matt Wallington. I'm one of 2 homeless navigators that are part of the community action team here at Lakewood Police. My job is to connect with people experiencing homelessness in the community and connect them with the resources, make warm handoffs to other agencies that can kind of address their more core needs and also address kind of the causes and effects of homelessness that they're experiencing. So we have a co-responder model. So we ride along with police, and as we engage with people experiencing homelessness, we will meet with them, kind of do a triage and assess their needs and try to address their most immediate needs, but also look at more longer term solutions like housing to kind of address the core issues of homelessness that way as well. We've been pretty successful. We've been going on for almost a year now. The program started in March of 2020 and then right in the middle of COVID. And we've been pretty successful in what we've been able to do. So far, we've housed over 36 people permanently, got them off the streets. We also tried to do more of a community response. So we've connected with several different agencies, community partners like Stride, different agencies, just to try to make all of that kind of connections that people might need in order to be successful. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. But if you'd like to contact me, my phone number is 303-987-7137, and I'd be more than happy to talk with you further about our program.
Thank you, Matt. We appreciate that.
And that's it for the police department.
Okay, thank you, Commander Perry. Thank you for being here.
You bet.
With that, we're going to move into our program. And first up is Chris Kennedy, who's going to give us an update on what's been happening in the most recent legislative session. We have about 10-12 minutes allotted for each of the speakers. So I will jump in with a 2-minute warning if we're running a little long. But Chris, with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you very much. Hang on one second. The screen just changed and I was trying to post something in the chat here. So because we did a lot this session, I'm going to give you guys a couple links to some reading material that can help fill in the gaps, because I certainly can't get through everything today. But I'm posting right now 2 things. One is the House Democrats end of session press release. It kind of outlines everything from our perspective. But if you prefer something from a third-party perspective, the Colorado Sun actually did a great story where they went into depth and kind of wrote up their takeaway on 65 of the biggest bills we passed this session. So the second link I just posted in the chat there is a really good guide if you just want to get a sense for what all we did, because it's a lot. So let me start with this. You know, when you're in a crisis, the crisis has to be your first, second, and third priority. And yet we also, I think, have a lot of long-standing problems and things we've been trying to solve that needed to be on the radar as well. And so, you know, we had kind of a strange last year and a half. You know, normally we're supposed to meet January through May of every year. But last year, the pandemic hit in about March, which is when we went into this multiple month recess before going back into session, which has never happened before in the history of Colorado. And we had to get approval from the Supreme Court before we even decided to do that. Came back for a 3-week session in May, June of last year to pass the most emergent stuff, right? We set aside a whole lot of legislation that was longer term priority, so we can only focus on what was right in front of us. Then we adjourned again. We came back for a special session at the end of November, early December, because there was a lot of uncertainty about what the federal government was going to do in terms of immediate relief. And we all saw that there was going to be a major COVID spike around the holidays, and that the vaccines were starting to, you know, be out there, but not really just yet. So we passed, I forget the exact dollar amount, I think it's north of $300 million in emergency relief to help people and businesses get through the winter months when we expected it was going to be a really hard time for COVID. Then we came back in January for a 3-day session because we're constitutionally required to start on the second Wednesday in January. But it was also a very bad time to be back in public spaces because that was when the post-holiday COVID spike was actually happening. So we were in for 3 days and then we were gone for another 5 weeks. So when we came back in mid-February, that is what started the legislative session in earnest this year, where we started our work that concluded last Tuesday, June 8th. So among the many things we did this session were continue to keep focus on emergency pandemic and recession relief for people. We had some good news in the state budget, which is that the tax revenues recovered far faster than we thought they would. Now, to be clear, a lot of people are still really hurting financially out there. But what you might not be surprised to learn is that it is different across the income spectrum. So low income people are much more likely to have been hit hard by COVID. And then middle income and higher income people, a smaller percentage of people were hit hard by COVID. Certainly some were, but a smaller percentage. Well, those middle income and higher income people are also the primary, you know, they pay the highest share of the taxes in Colorado. So whereas a lot of people were still hurting out there, we did see a recovery of tax revenues beyond what we thought. So a lot of the deep cuts we made in May, June of last year, we were able to restore. On top of that, we were able to start prioritizing more state dollars for stimulative things. First of all, just the regular economic relief, because putting money directly into the pockets of the people who are out of work, who are at risk of losing their housing, who aren't able to afford food, those dollars we spend and they go right back into the economy. So that was one of the many priorities we pushed on. But we also had opportunities to try to stimulate economic growth through a variety of different things. So as just one example, I was the lead sponsor on a bill in the House that put $75 million into rural broadband infrastructure. These are the kinds of things that are shovel-ready projects that get people working right away and help get dollars back into the economy once again. And that's just one of many examples. We passed dozens of pieces of legislation. Well, as all of that was happening, that's when the federal government took real action. And I just can't shower enough praise on the Congress and the president right now. I know that's a rare thing for us to do, but right now, the money that they put in through the American Rescue Plan Act is providing unprecedented relief. This is the kind of stimulus we should have had after the 2008-2009 recession that would have helped our economy get out of its recession much faster, as opposed to the long, slow recovery we ended up having after that one. This kind of investment is really significant for a few reasons. One, they are focusing on stimulative things. So there's a lot of money going into direct pocketbook relief for families and businesses, but also it included flexible dollars for the state that we can use to replace the funding that we had previously put in place. So that 75 million I mentioned for broadband, by the time we got to the end of the legislative session, we actually replaced the funding source of that with federal funds. What that did was it freed up the 75 million in state funds to set aside in our rainy day fund to increase our investment in K-12 and higher education. So those things are really critical. I'll also say that the federal relief package included a lot of federal money to help us backfill some of the cuts we made to K-12 higher education and other projects over the course of the preceding year. So all in all, we're in a place where I feel very good about the work we've done to stabilize the economy. And obviously, as more and more people are getting vaccinated, are able to get back to normal, I think we've all had the opportunity to go to a restaurant. Well, maybe not everyone's made that choice yet, but I've gone to a restaurant and sat down at a restaurant, and it's a pretty unique thing to see how that feels after the year of being so isolated from each other. So all of those things together have been really significant. But we've also, while all of that stuff is happening, we've also been continuing to keep an eye on the future. What are the longer term projects that we need to do? We still have a very siloed mental health system in Colorado. And despite some of the efforts that have been made, and I have to, again, praise Jeffco Human Services for the work that they've done on this, we still are a pretty long way from having a comprehensive system for behavioral health. So we've taken some big steps this year to try to move to more of a comprehensive behavioral healthcare system in Colorado. We started that work this session with some major investments to get us through in the short term to create some structures for what the system is going to look like. And we've set up an interim process that's going to be taking place that's going to talk about investing another $500 million in major system overhauls for behavioral health. So that's really big stuff. The second big area where we're going to be focusing continuing effort and continuing investment of federal dollars is on housing and homelessness. I'm really appreciative. I reached out to the mayor at the very beginning of this legislative session and said, you know, I know there's been some stuff happening in the community. I know you have these homelessness coordinators. What's happening? And Adam set up a briefing for me and for the other legislators who were interested in Jeffco to get plugged into what was going on there. And some of my colleagues, I think, got further ahead than I did on this. Carrie Tipper started putting some focus onto the homeless navigators. And I actually don't know all the details of what we successfully funded this session or not, but I do know that that's another one where we're going to have a continued conversation over the summer. So look for information about an interim committee process that will be meeting. There will also be an advisory committee comprised of community members who have expertise on these issues to recommend the things for the state. We wanted this to be a slow and deliberate process because these are big problems. We didn't want to just throw money at it. We wanted to, you know, focus some dollars right now on the things where we know we needed immediate relief, but build a longer term process to be really thoughtful about what these investments need to look like so we can actually solve homelessness in Colorado, so that we can solve our affordable housing crisis. I think it's such an opportunity, and I'm really excited about telling you guys more about it when the interim processes begin to take shape. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the transportation bill. I know that transportation infrastructure funding has been something that's been talked about for a long time. I know that getting a statewide solution is very desirable. And even though there are actors in the Denver metro area who would be willing to go it alone if that was the only option on the table, that really had the risk of leaving rural Colorado behind, which is why the state legislature has been so focused since my first year in 2017 at trying to come up with a sustainable funding source for the kinds of transportation infrastructure projects we need. Because I think everyone who's taken a close look at the state budget knows you can't cut enough. You know, you'd have to eliminate the entire state Medicaid program if you really wanted to do this. And we're not willing to, you know, make poor people go without health care so that we could fund transportation infrastructure. We believe we're capable of doing both. So my colleagues, Matt Gray and Faith Winter, were really the leaders on this effort, although our leadership, Alec Garnett and Steve Fenberg and many others, contributed to this too. And through a combination of funding sources, some of which were some of the federal dollars we're getting right now, some of which is through a new fee on gas per gallon. It's going to start at 1 cent per gallon and ramp up to a total of 8 cents per gallon after a few years. And then a variety of fees on different kinds of things, such as Grubhub and Lyft and Uber, and, you know, a variety of different players that use the transportation infrastructure. Sorry, I stumbled on my words there. They use our transportation infrastructure will all be paying into the system. And through this, we've secured about $5 billion over the next decade to try to go after the biggest things on our tier 1 transportation list. So it's going to be a mix of things. It's certainly going to include a lot of funding for highways and bridge repair, but a lot of dollars will be going to local governments for their flexible usage for whatever is most needed. And certainly a lot of that will be going into multimodal projects as well. So that's a really big deal that we finally got that thing done after 5 years of trying. And I'm excited about seeing us finally start to reinvest in those projects. And I also have to mention that there's the economic stimulative aspect of that as well, and that we're going to be keeping people working with those funds. And then last but not least, I'm going to mention a few things, and if there's still time for questions, I have no idea how long I've talked. I see. Okay. So we did a lot of small business relief, including startup funds and loan programs for small businesses. And then we did some dedicated funding for arts and culture organizations in Colorado too. So a lot of that money is going to be going into the arts relief program we set up last year that's really focusing on lost revenue for arts organizations. So I am certain that 40 West has not entirely recovered its original, you know, revenue stream. So they should be eligible to receive funds for some of the revenues that have been lost because of the pandemic. There are also going to be some dollars set aside to try to focus on new grants to arts and culture organizations serving historically underserved communities. And I certainly think West Colfax is likely to qualify for those programs. So if any of you need help, I'm not really the expert on those programs, but I do have the ability to get the folks over at the Office of Economic Development to answer my phone calls. So anything that you guys need to try to get things moving on West Colfax, please call me. Let me know how I can be helpful on all of those things. And then just a personal thing to end off. Many of you already know this, but my wife and I are having a baby in September. So I'm really excited that our little girl is going to be arriving September 8th. So I say that because if you need something from me, call me in July and then the first half of August. And then after that, you should anticipate that Carrie Tipper is going to be your go-to for Lakewood related issues. If you need something, call Carrie or call one of our state senators to help you out, because I'm going to be on paternity leave. So I probably didn't save any time for questions, but you can also send something to me in the chat and I will stay on for a little while so I can engage in questions on the chat. Thank you guys all for having me this morning. I appreciate your time.
Chris Kennedy, thank you for being here. I know that was, you were talking fast and there's a lot you covered. So folks, you can use the chat box to connect with Chris. He's going to hang around a bit, and don't be a stranger. Feel free to come back. You know, if you've got more to share with us, we'll make room for you on future agendas. Thank you. And with that, we're going to turn it over to Ashley Verville, who's in Congressman Perlmutter's office, and she's got a brief update for us.
Thank you, Ron, and thank you, Chris. That was a great overview, and congratulations. As a mom of two girls are the best. So good luck with all of that. So I'm excited to announce our office is transitioning back into full in-person. After the 4th of July, we'll be having constituents back into the office, taking in-person meetings, getting back to kind of more in-person events. So we've obviously been, serving constituents remotely, over this past year, but we're all looking forward to getting back in the office. We're all vaccinated, so we're excited for all of that. To kick some of that off, Ed was out and about last week. He visited two restaurants to talk about the Paycheck Protection Program and how that really helped them, including the extension that was recently passed. We are keeping an eye on the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. So applications have closed. They closed on May 24th. But there's work to be done to kind of replenish that fund and open it back up again. I'd also be curious if anyone knows of a restaurant or that has received that funding, because we'd be curious how that's working for folks. So please, if you have any ideas or know of anyone who's utilized that funding, let me know. The other big thing coming up from the American Rescue Plan is the child tax credit. So the American Rescue Plan increased the tax credit for 2021 up to about $3,600 for children under 6 and about $3,000 per child up to 17. So the portal for that new and expanded tax credit is opening later this month. So we will be sending out information about that. But that's a pretty big deal for a lot of families in our community. And then given that it is summer now, there's the American Rescue Plan also included several food assistance programs, extended or expanded existing programs. So the pandemic EBT is now through the summer, and then the increased SNAP benefits will continue as well. So if anyone has any questions more on those programs, I'm happy to help. Mayor Paul mentioned this earlier, but we were pleased to see that 5 of our member designated projects for transportation projects were included in the Invest in America Act. It still has a long way to go to get through the House and the Senate, but we're glad to see those 5 projects at least included, and we'll keep making sure that they stay in there. And then lastly, I'll just note that later this week or even next week, Ed will be reintroducing his Green Neighborhoods Act. And that legislation he actually introduced when he was first elected, and several components actually have been incorporated into law over the past several years. But we have kind of refreshed the legislation and are reintroducing it. It basically requires HUD to implement green efficiency standards and incentives in our housing supply in single and multifamily structures, as well as some non-residential housing structures. So I will be sure to share that with all of you as well. And I think that is about it for me. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you for being here. And it's great to have you kind of plugged into our community. So we look forward to having you giving us updates as things proceed. So thank you for that. And again, with Ashley and Chris, you can connect them through the chat box while we're here, and you can connect to them through Congressman Perlmutter's office, and you can get to Chris Kennedy as well. So we appreciate that. And with that, we're going to move on in our program, and we've got Thomas Keefe here from Rocky, the RIMCAD, and we're going to give Tom a little bit more time in the program because we can make that work. So with that said, Tom, we're going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Ron. Thank you, everyone. I was with you last week briefly, and I showed you some pictures of the original entrance from Colfax. And I wanted to share a little bit more. Bill had asked me what my big takeaways were from my research on the history of the campus. And I wanted to just kind of step back and say that this research kind of came out of the Lakewood 50 exhibit that was at the Heritage Center a couple of years ago. It really got me interested in digging in a little bit deeper. And what I did is I kind of made a diary of the campus itself. There's a lot of written work on Dr. Charles Spivak and the early years of the JCRS campus. But I kind of wanted to make a book where the character in the book was the land itself. And so it's a collection of stories from the history of JCRS, as well as its reincarnation as AMC, and then the purchase and tenantship of REMCAD over the past almost 20 years. So here's again a Google image of the campus from above. And as I said last month, this is the original entrance. It's basically the Arby's on Colfax, and it would go straight back and kind of turn a little bit to the west, south of the Neusteter building, if you know where that is. And there's another loop in front of the New York building, which, as you know, is separated from the REMCAD campus today. But this is what it would have looked like for the Ashkenazi, Russian, Ukrainian, and Polish Jews that settled in the West Colfax area. And while there was already a Jewish community on the east side, that community tended to be more German, secular, and the Ashkenazi Jews from Eastern Europe were just as afflicted with the tuberculosis pandemic, but couldn't use those facilities on the east side because they weren't kosher at the time. So JCRS was set up, JCRS was set up as a kosher kitchen, but also open to people of all religions. After this temporary entrance was created, they did set up a more permanent entrance. You can see here, you can kind of see some of the campus buildings in the back. And here's another, it's a little grainier, another entrance that was created. You can see the guardhouse, and you can even see the synagogue in the back. And that's what it would have looked like. This would have been circa about 1910, because the water tower was erected in 1910. You can see those tents. There's still one as a museum on the REMCAD campus today. So my big takeaways from doing this research was, again, we all have heard, I think, about the great Dr. Charles Spivak, but I was really fascinated by Dr. Philip Hilkowitz. Yes, Spivak wound up getting a post office named after him right on campus, in the area before it was incorporated as Lakewood and part of it as Edgewater. It was known as Spivak, Colorado. But Dr. Hilkowitz actually lived and worked on the campus for almost double the amount of time that Charles Spivak did. And I just found it fascinating. He was on the board of St. Anthony's, very close with the Catholic bishops of Denver, working against the Ku Klux Klan in the 1920s, and actually working with anti-immigration, working to confront anti-immigration proponents that were attacking the Irish as well. Just a fascinating man. So one of my other takeaways was when Charles Spivak died, half of his body was buried here on Colfax Avenue at the Golden Hills Cemetery. The other half of his body was actually shipped to what's now Israel. Then it was called the Palestine Mandate. And so he's buried in 2 continents. That's not too shabby. Random, I'm a nerd, Spivak Building, which is the first permanent structure built on campus, is the only building whose keystone is only in English. Every other one of the original buildings is in both Hebrew and in English. And here, this is a great photo. This is the groundbreaking ceremony for what we call on campus today Rotunda Building. And in this picture on the left is the great Dr. Philip Hilkowitz. There is the great Rabbi Calvert, who is one of the leaders of the resurgence of Orthodox Judaism, not just in the United States or in Denver, but worldwide. The man with the overalls is Abe Judelman, known as the Builder. He was the leader of the construction of almost all the buildings on campus. The tent is actually dedicated to him and his family. His family still owns a construction company in the area today. And then Judge Ben Lindsay, who was not Jewish, but very good friends with everybody in the photo and was one of the leading reformers. In fact, almost everybody in this image worked together to defeat Mayor Speer in 1920, I think it was, because of his lack of progressive policies, we'll call them. So I think one of my big takeaways was how integrated all of these communities were in the area. Dan McQuaid, the man who redesigned the water tower, was in a horrific train accident in Casper, Wyoming, and walked 4 miles to get to town to tell the law enforcement and rescue people about the horrific train accident. That was another interesting thing that I saw in my research. And then 3 really famous patients that stuck out: the great Yiddish poet, Solomon Bloomgarden, who is considered to be the greatest poet in the Yiddish language. And he wrote the premier, with Dr. Charles Spivak, the premier Yiddish English dictionary. Loon Matz, who was the first campus librarian, and while he's more identified with California, he wrote some of his best poetry here while he was a patient suffering from tuberculosis. And both of them worked in the Rehabilitation Building doing bookbinding, and as well as I said already, working in the library itself. And this is not so much a good story, but it is a very famous story. A world famous Russian violinist was a patient at the campus, became enamored with one of the nurses. She was not interested, and he killed her right on campus and tried to kill himself, but was tackled by other patients, put on trial, and convicted of the murder of Bessie Merrill. I'm going to drop this in the chat when I'm done. I found one of those like 1940-ish reels, like those World War II newsreels. It's fantastic, about 14 minutes, and you can see what the campus looked like in the 1940s. And I love this. Take a look at this. This is the second floor of the Texas Pavilion for Women. I want you to look at the far wall and the X-ray lights. That's a picture from the 1940s. This is what it looks like today in 2021. We still have the X-ray boards. They still work. We use them to illuminate student artwork. It's just amazing to see all these little pieces of the original hospital still part of our beautiful campus today. I showed you this picture last month, Bob Hope on the stage. We think this is about 1941. We're not sure. We don't have any other information about his visit that I've been able to find yet, but it's worth sharing again. It's Bob Hope. And one of Chris Kennedy's predecessors, Ben Englander, was elected to represent the area, what we call now, I guess, Ward 2 of Lakewood and parts of Edgewater, and maybe a little bit of the West Colfax area of Denver. He was elected in November of 1946 and died in February of 1947, just after taking his oath of office. So he is remembered in the synagogue memorial boards. And then Katie Lewis in the Lakewood Heritage Center. If you don't know her, her research skills are amazing. We found this photo together. This is an image of the groundbreaking and the foundation being set for what we now call the Diamond Building. They had to take down the nurses' staff building, but I just couldn't believe it when we found this building. And many of you probably already know this, but at its peak, the JCRS campus was over 100 acres, had a hospital, a laundry, a pharmacy, a dental office, a library, as I said, and a post office, as I said. It had its own store. It had a synagogue. But this is I'm winding up, I promise. It had a dairy farm, chicken coops, and most importantly, the cows. JCRS won the state championships for their cows in 1938. So thank you. Those were the big highlights from my research. I hope that was interesting. And like I said, I'll drop the YouTube in the chat. And if you want to know more, please reach out. I'd love to share more about our campus. Thank you.
That was remarkable. Wow. It's just incredible to see that from that opening gate picture to where we are today. So, and I hope our members can find their way up there and drive through and see some of what's still there. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. We really appreciate that. Moving to our next item on the agenda, we're going to have Vanessa back, and Vanessa is going to be doing part 2 of kind of an overview of the economic development process within the city of Lakewood, to help people just kind of understand kind of the mechanics and timelines and those types of things. So with that, Vanessa, the floor is yours.
Perfect, thank you. I'm going to share my screen to start. I also think we should bring back the cows, but I don't know if that'll fly.
I think pigs fly, not cows.
So I wanted to speak to you today on part 2 of kind of how development and this process works. Last month, we spoke to how we attract people into the city of Lakewood and how we focus our efforts and things like that. And today I wanted to somewhat briefly walk you through the development process here at the city of Lakewood. So that starts with what we call our Development Assistance Team, or DAT for short. And this team is comprised of members of teams across the city, and we get together once a week to discuss the plans that have come into the city of Lakewood. So this team includes development assistance planning, our engineering team, long-range planning, public works, our building department, community resources, my team, and we bring in West Metro Fire as well as an entity to share in these conversations and meetings with us. But we meet once a week to talk about all the plans and systems that have come into the city of Lakewood of interest, or people that have interest in building something here. This is a general overview of the project. We start with a pre-planning application, and then it heads through these various forms all the way down to approval. I will get into briefly what all of these are in the next couple of slides. Beginning to end, depending on the nature of the project, depending on how extravagant it is, how big it is, how complex it is. It can take 6 months to get through. We've had some projects here that have taken 2 or 3 years to get through this process, just because of the complex nature of what they're building and the site they're using, and the melding together of all the rules and regulations. The very first step we have is a consultation meeting. So when someone has interest in a project, whether that's through our office, whether that's through planning, what have you, we start with a consultation meeting. We all get in a room with the development team, with my team, planning and engineering, and just briefly talk about what they want to do. Does it meet zoning? Does it meet some of these overarching themes and ideas? And in this consultation meeting, they leave with a slightly better understanding of what to expect in the process, how to move forward, and what the city of Lakewood will need. From here, we go on to a pre-planning. A pre-planning is exploratory in nature. We do not necessarily need fully engineered plans to go through this process, but this process is the start of any major site plan, and it helps us provide some overarching ideas and things and comments back to this team and the development team on their concept, the idea, any major potential issues we see. The development team leads a pre-planning with a well thought out letter on some commentary and steps on how to move forward. We typically see sometimes 3, 4, 5 pre-plannings before a site can actually, well, not can, before a site sometimes actually gets to. Sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 4, but we have to go through this first. And then we get to the formal site plan. This is the process that typically takes the longest in this, well, does take the longest in this. These are our current planning cases. We'll have to includes everything from lot line adjustments to allocations to subdivisions. What we'll be talking about too is more of the formal site plan process, but this is where all of the nitty-gritty happens. At this stage is when the project is being compared to zoning regulations, to all the components that are in zoning, to West Metro fire regulations, to life and safety regulations. And this stage usually goes through 3 or 4, sometimes more back and forths between our team and the development team of commentary. Hey, A, B, and C are right. We need to adjust D, E, and F to meet criteria. But this is the longest part of this program and where the nitty-gritty and the details happen. Part of this process is referrals. So as you're building new projects in particular, you have to meet fire and safety regulations, but we're also looking at your utility hall and do we have adequate utilities on site? Do we need to upgrade these? How do you connect into these utilities? Where are the connection points? And then we work with outside agencies like Jefferson County if need be, depending on where the project is. So if a project is on the Lakewood border, we typically send it out to our neighboring entity. But part of this site plan process is working through the referrals to utilities and West Metro Fire, other entities, making sure that we are meeting their codes and standards. We're all working together and on the same page to keep this project moving forward. These referrals and referrals back and forth with Lakewood staff can happen at the same time, but it's all part of the larger picture of how we develop and how it works through a formal site plan. Part of this too next is building permits. So when you submit a formal site plan, you submit to the planning department and engineering department, and partway through that process, you will submit building plans to our building department. We typically run these at least partially concurrent so that when you get partway through the site and civil plan process, you can submit to building permit. Our building department teams, planning teams, engineering teams work extremely close together to make sure that any changes on one side are reflected on the other, so that by the time we get to the end, the projects are aligned, everyone's on the same page. Any adjustments that needed to be made were made and reflected in all plans and all areas of this project. This is where you will come visit us if you want to see me at the office or planning, engineering, or building department. When this is all said and done, maybe, we get to the approval process. And as I said, this can take many months depending on the project, but once all codes and regulations have been met, once all comments have been addressed from staff and outside agencies, you get to an approval. And this approval consists of your site plan, of all the components of your site plan that I'll touch on briefly on the next slide, as well as your building permits. Once you get through approval and these are signed, that is when you can start to pull building permits and actually start construction on your project. A couple of things I just wanted to touch on briefly that go into this whole process is some of these plans. So the plan we're operating off now is the Lakewood Comprehensive Plan. And this is what our zoning is trying to enforce and complement and add to. But this plan comes from many, many plans before that. And these work as our visioning documents for the city. These work to kind of highlight where we want certain types of uses, where we want things to grow and expand our growth areas. But these come from old master plans. These come from combinations of implementation plans and area plans, all the way through, you know, urban design plans, stationary plans, as I said, but all these come together to work together as we work through our planning process and our zoning process to get to the first submission through the end approval. Colfax 2040 plan. There's many plans. A few things that are within our zoning ordinance that get worked through while we're in a site plan process I wanted to touch on. These include things like build-to zones, how much of the frontage is covered by a new building, setbacks, how close to the street is this building, architectural design elements, what kind of transparency will there be, what kind of architectural elements that differ will there be, what type of materials will be used in the project, What type of landscaping will be used in the project? Where will trees go? What kind of shrubs? How will they work with the built environment that's there? As well as things like our enhanced development menu, which is a newer addition to our zoning code, but speaks to some of our sustainability elements and helping to ensure that new builds and developments are good stewards of the space in which they are entering. But our zoning ordinance speaks to many requirements for these buildings, and there's room for creativity and thoughtful thinking, but there are requirements that have to be met as you move through. They're based on zone district, they're based on use, they're based on type of use and what's going to go in there. But zoning code and the zoning ordinance speaks to all of that, and this is what is addressed in detail as they walk through a formal site plan. A couple other things I want to talk about are some of the regulations we use as well. So there are comprehensive sign plans, signs are addressed as we work through new builds, but there's also things like fire codes, building codes, and those speak to the safety aspects, the ADA aspects of these buildings, how they should be built. This is not 100% of my area of expertise, but they look at things too, such as where are the outlets going, where are they in connection to water, where do these lines cross each other within buildings, where are these lines and everything in the walls and in the structure themselves. But there's a lot of detail that goes into this to make sure these buildings are built well and safely and in alignment with all of these codes. You cannot get an approval with the city of Lakewood or anywhere without being in alignment and in compliance with all of these codes. So there's a very quick overview. I tried to make it a little shorter than last month, but that is generally how we go through this process. We start with a consultation meeting, we walk through interest, we walk through process, we go to pre-planning, and then we get into the nitty-gritty that is a formal site plan with all the details and the regulations and the development team, our team, and hopefully we get to the end result that we want. But as always, here are ways that we communicate, ways to get a hold of us, ways to ask us questions. I will put my info in the chat as well. I think most of you know how to get a hold of me now. But here's all information. This is our team. I think you know most of us as well. Laura, the nice lady in blue, is our newest addition. So we'll see her and start bringing her around when we go back in person. But I'm happy to answer questions and walk through this process. I did send it to Katie late, so hopefully it'll be online quickly. But are there any questions I can answer? Is there anything I can work to address now?
Thank you, Vanessa. I know that was going at a very fast clip. I'm fascinated by all the community plans, and I saw one, for example, Rooney Valley, that looks like the communities are doing kind of something similar to what we're doing in updating our vision plan. And I'm wondering, if there's a place at the city of Lakewood where people could come and look through those other community plans.
Roger and Alexis might be on this call, but I believe quite a few of these are online on lakewood.org, and you can find them. Some of them were rolled into the comprehensive plan, so they're no longer a standalone document, but quite a few of them are on lakewood.org, and I will put that link in the chat for everyone.
Okay, appreciate that.
Alexis beat me to it.
Well, Roger's up next, so but I know he's got a lot to cover as well. So look at lakewood.org and you can find your way there, or find your way to Vanessa, and she'll point you in the right direction. And Vanessa is on the board of WCCA, so she's very plugged into what we're doing. Thank you for that. Thank you for going at a very fast clip as well. To try to keep us on schedule, we're going to move to our last major item on the agenda, and that is Roger and Ann Kuchenmeister, if I'm pronouncing your name right, Ann. But with that, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Great, thanks, Ron. And I realize we're a little, pressed for time, so we'll make this fairly quick. Yeah, to tie into the plans, certainly they are available on the website, all the plans, but the Colfax Safety Project does tie into a number of plans, including the most recent Colfax plan that was adopted in 2015. So from these plans, a lot of funding opportunities can kind of be identified. So anyway, what I wanted to do today is just continue to give an update on the Colfax Safety Project that is currently, it's funded by, some of this is repetition, but they're new people, funded by a grant of $12.5 million from the state with a local match. And it addresses improving the pedestrian environment between Sheridan and Wadsworth on Colfax and addressing a major safety issue. This area has the highest number of pedestrian vehicle injuries, crashes in the city, and very highly ranked in the region, or unfortunately highly ranked in the region for that reason. So the purpose of the project is to make improvements to address safety. We currently are in the public involvement piece, and Ann will talk about that. We are moving into actually the design process. We have a request for proposal out that's due tomorrow, and we'll be going through a selection process. Hopefully have a consultant on board by August to start really looking at the design issues very, very close and very carefully. So that's where we are. Again, liquidtogether.org is the website. We do keep it very current. So if you need any, current information on a project, that's where you find it. But really, I'd like to turn it over to Ann Kuchenmeister with Michael Baker to talk about where we are in the public involvement piece that will feed into the design. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ann.
Great, thanks, Roger. Good morning, everybody. And yeah, just a few updates. So I'm sharing my screen and I put the website address in the chat. I know I've shared this before, but I really just want to hit home that this is our hub for information. And right now, our key opportunity is maybe twofold. We had our first public meeting and we have recordings of that available in English and in Spanish on the website. So you can see those here on the side. And then we also have a visual preference survey. So survey number 1 had just about 600 respondents, which is amazing, telling us about priorities for the area by each mode. And now we want to know more about what those top priority design elements should look like. And we want to hear from everybody on how we should start thinking about that. So we've got some project character areas that we ask quick questions about. And then we've got some really exciting images with some education text here to consider. So we'd love to hear among these options what everybody prefers and how we should be thinking about integrating really cool elements into transit stations, in the medians, along for lighting, as we heard is a top priority from people. What should that look like? And what ideas do you all have? So we'd love more people to jump on the website and share their input and take this survey. Right now we're at about 120 people who have responded. And so thanks to those who have already done so. And if you haven't, it's a pretty quick survey. It should take you 5 minutes or less to do. And there's a bunch of really inspiring images. So it's kind of a fun one. In addition to that, a big thank you, an ongoing thank you to the 40 West Arts District, who are partnering with to create visual representations of what this project means for West Colfax. Thinking about the vision for the corridor, how does that come together to pair with the community sentiments, the character of the area, and what we aspire for it to evolve to with this level of investment. And so we are reviewing some of those drafts today, and we hope to have them available for everyone to see in the coming weeks. So we're really excited about that, that work as well. And with that said, I think that's all we have for our public engagement update today. But yeah, please do take that survey and share it with a friend when you're done.
Very nice. That's exciting to see the concept designs that are in that survey. So we will have that on westcolfax.org to a link to the survey, but we appreciate everyone getting your input in, because I think we're at that phase where the input's going to be important to how this comes together. So yeah, thank you for your work on this. It's going to be an amazing part of, and it's kind of interesting, isn't it, to go from the history that we saw from Tom Keefe of kind of where we've been in the past to like a forward-looking, here's what we're, here's a look down the street, when you turn your head 90 degrees to the left or the right. Kind of fascinating to tie that together. At least that's how it works in my mind. Thank you all for that. We did have Lauren Richardson, who's on our board here for a tip of the month, but I'm not sure Lauren is with us. I see Katie, I think. So we're going to just defer that because we're kind of short on time anyway. So we'll be back next week with a tip. We're trying to get our board engaged in giving some of those tips. We're going to go through our community updates, and we're a little short on time. So, but we'll start off with the Action Center, and I know we have someone here, so I'll just go through the list and give us a brief update.
Good morning.
Well, good morning. Oh, and Pam's here.
Oh, hey, Tani, I didn't know you were there. You can go first if you want, Tani. I'll fill in when you're done.
No, I'll let you go, Pam.
Okay. Thanks for being here, Tani. The big announcement that I wanted to make is that the Action Center has partnered with an organization called Recovery Works to get our shelter back up and running. It's going to have a different emphasis than when we last opened. If you recall, we had a partnership with Red Rocks around students experiencing homelessness. And for a lot of reasons, particularly COVID, that didn't take off. The timing was just really challenging. But we have partnered with James Ginsburg, formerly of Denver Housing and Homelessness, and he is working with us. We're donating or sharing our shelter building for the purpose of creating a drop-in center for people experiencing homelessness. And that center will have case management services happening as people drop in and need them. It will have light food for folks who are in need. It will have showers that are there in our building. It will have a recovery focus, but anyone who is experiencing homelessness and is in need of a place to go and to rest will be able to utilize the space. There will be recovery programming happening in the evenings and at different times throughout the week, which will be publicized. And the beds will also be used for respite care. So there's a partnership with local hospitals. So as people are dismissed from hospital stays or from the emergency room, but they're really not safe to return back to the streets, the beds can be utilized by those hospitals to give safe housing for a limited period of time for folks who aren't requiring medical attention, but really just need a place to further recover. So really exciting partnership with Recovery Works. You'll be hearing more about it. They hope to open in early July, and we will be working alongside with them to publicize this and to get the word out. Obviously, we'll be working with Lakewood's navigators and Jefferson County's navigators. We'll be working very closely with James. So this is going to be a great addition to our community, and we're really, really excited to bring it back online for everyone. So just that was the biggest announcement I wanted to make. Otherwise, all of our services that we're typically offering are still happening at the Action Center. Rent assistance is a big one. Please send people there's a county website where people apply for rent assistance, and we are one of 4 organizations in the county who is meeting that need. So that is still happening in quite large numbers. I think we've distributed over $2 million of rent assistance at this point in time since COVID began. The other things, just very quickly, I know I need to be brief. We do have our beautiful junk sale happening again, September 16th and 17th. It's going to be outdoors this year at the Lakewood United Methodist parking lot. And there will be a street fair on the second day on that Saturday, the 17th as well. So I wanted to mention that. Our back to school event will be happening August 2nd to August 8th. That's our backpack distribution event. Will be happening as usual. And look out in October. I know this feels a little far away, but we'll be having another record-breaking collection of underwear called Undie Sunday. Last time we had a record-breaking sock collection. So this year it's going to be underwear. And we're really excited about that, and you'll hear more about that. And if anyone has further questions for me, please feel free to reach out, pbreyer@theactioncenter.org. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Pam. And before we move to Liquid Arts, I'm just going to mention that we're getting very close to the top of the hour. We've tried really hard to pack so much into these, and we've also always tried to have people out by 9. We're not going to meet that goal. We're going to go a little bit long. So those of you that need to drop off, do so as you need to. The whole meeting is being recorded and will be posted up on the website for those that might need to scoot and then come back to it. But and with that, we'll continue on through, and we have Lakewood Arts up next. And hearing no one from Lakewood Arts, we will move to Two Creeks neighborhood.
Two Creeks will be meeting in person for the first time this month at the Brick House, so that should be fun. We're going to be talking about Mount Air Christian Church 100-year anniversary, and then the Jeffco Center for Mental Health will be there. So that's what we're doing. And then in July, we're going to have the new principal at Mulholm, Jim McKinney. So our agendas keep changing all the time. That's what we're doing at this moment.
Thank you, Kathy. And Kathy is also a member of the WCCA board, so she keeps us very plugged in on kind of the neighborhood watch from her perspective. Iber neighborhood.
I was waiting for Robin. I gave Robin a chance. We had a great event on Saturday and are continuing to connect with the community, hoping to have 2 more events this summer, and as our part of our revitalization effort for the Iber Neighborhood Association.
Okay, thank you, Josh. And I see Liz just posted in the chat a reminder for the Lakewood Arts Garden Tour that's coming up, so you can get tickets there. And thanks for that brief update, Josh. Morse Park, Applewood Valley. Daniels Welchester.
Lots of exciting things happening in and around our neighborhood, but since time is short, I will just send out some email invites. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Diane. Much appreciated. Much appreciated. Lakewood Elks.
Yeah, I'm happy to record that we're open from Tuesday to Friday. We got 2 live bands going, and then we have special Saturday functions. We do have a red, white, and blue barbecue and dance on the 3rd of July, starting at 5 o'clock. Anybody that wants to check out what we do there, we got the Jim Hyatt Band. But what's really exciting is that we are leasing a youth camp, and we're having our first 2 weeks, 2 separate weeks of 24 youth per session, and having that. So we're going to start increasing our use of that camp, but we're just opening it for the first time this year, which is going to be awesome. And we're looking at using lower income children to expose them to that environment. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Jerry. West Metro Chamber.
Yes, hi guys, good morning. This is Madison with the Chamber. 2 quick things. So we have Taste of the West coming up on August 5th. That's going to be at the Colorado Mills, and it's in the parking deck, so near the Yard House over there. We'll have our food vendors, our beer garden, taste of wine, spirits, and all the best Jeffco has to offer. So let me know in the chat if you have any favorite restaurants you want to make sure is there at the food vendor part. And this year, we're also introducing a business expo, as we've taken that on since the leave of Jeffco BRC. So if you're interested in knowing more about Taste of the West, or being a part in sponsorships, or just sending me over restaurants, I'll send my email in the chat. Tickets are only $20 this year for the early bird pricing, so check that out on our website. And then lastly, the Chamber sent out a press release recently about the retirement of our president and CEO, Pam Bales. We will be hosting a farewell party for her at 240 Union. I'm going to send the invite to the chat as well, and you can RSVP through me.
Okay, thank you, Madison. We have RimCAD on for updates, and we heard from Tom Keefe earlier, but I just didn't know if there was anything else that you want to make us aware of that's happening on campus. West Colfax Kiwanis.
Yes, we're still meeting. Lots of activity this summer, planning events for fundraising. We'd love to have you join us first and third Tuesdays of the month at 5:30. And just let me know if you're interested in joining us.
Okay, thank you, Josh. North Lakewood Advocates.
Ron, we're gonna start evening meetings for that group in September.
Okay. Okay, and we'll be back with info on those, the times and dates of those meetings. Thank you, Bill. Katie, I think has a little wrap up for the passport program.
Oh, I won't take anybody's time, but go click on that link on our website and read all of the great reviews of Passport West Colfax. We're going to have another one coming up in the fall, and I'm not going to put on a date on it because I don't want to do that yet, but it's going to be for retail businesses. So go see what everybody said on your own. I'll drop a link in the chat. Thank y'all.
Okay. I had a request in the chat from Kathy Kettner from the Lakewood Planning Commission that wanted to say a word or two. Kathy, you still with us?
Yes, I just wanted to give everybody an update on what the Planning Commission has been up to. I wish I had Vanessa's slide where she showed all those plans. The Planning Commission is in charge of all those plans, and we have been asked by City Council to do a Union Corridor vision plan. So we're busy working on that. But the next plan we will probably hear is, thanks to this group, the Colfax 2040 plan is part of the comprehensive plan. And thanks to a lot of hard work from people in this group, I think we're going to have an update on that later this summer. So thank you, and please keep in tune on lakewood.org with what the Planning Commission is up to.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, folks, we're just a couple minutes past our normal stop time. So and I appreciate the brevity that some folks have had to keep it brief. There's a lot of information that was in the chat room. Katie does a great job of putting contact information up on westcolfax.org. Lots of garden tours happening. It's summer, you know, get out and about. So we appreciate everyone's time today. Action-packed agenda. Be back with us third Wednesday of next month, and bring someone along. We're starting our membership drive we have some discussions that are going to take place right after this meeting. So we want to grow our community. So point people in our direction and invite people to come to next month's meetings. We appreciate your time. Enjoy summer. Stay cool. And with that, we'll conclude the meeting. Thank you. Thank you all.